Good morning, everybody. I hope this video finds you well. Today, what I want to do is I want to talk a little bit about how our souls are going to be put back together. Yeah, that's right. For those of you who have watched DM's presentation and thoughts about what he sees on lucid dreaming, as well as the remote viewing of the reincarnation. They call it the tunnel of light, but it's reincarnation. Tunnel of light is not reincarnation. They're two separate things. And if you watch those, and of course if you've been reading and watching my writings, you'll know that soul is the configuration of an ISB. An ISB enters a universe and configures itself as a soul. And for the longest times, all of us were souls within this particular main universe. And then because of an empire, which we euphemistically call the Old Empire, they created a prison complex within a group of pretty much ravished solar systems. And Earth is one such place. One such of numerous ones. And we have concluded that the inmates in this complex, whatever form they had, whether they were giraffes or elephants or dolphins or munchkins, were torn from their natural soul configuration and put into human bodies or other bodies, such as dolphins or donkeys or horses, in this environment. So what happened, of course, as I've described this before, is our souls have been separated into three components. The consciousness component, which inhabits a physical body and goes back and forth and back and forth. A higher energy component that's attached to your physical body, but is separate. And we call this the guardian angel, or spiritual guide, or Manted GP. Now this entity is a construction that's unlike that of yours, but you feel an attachment to it because it's part of you. But it is also, Manteds, as I've described before, are part of a large pool of these creatures. They're part of something bigger. You only see a small part of them. And then there is the highest energy component of yours, which we call Manted Prime, and they exist in heaven, which is a pocket universe. This entire situation resides within a main universe. So we have a main universe, and inside of that is a reality universe that you inhabit. And inside of that is a heaven universe, which is a pocket universe within a pocket universe. Don't be confused about geometry, geography, because when we're talking universes, we go beyond time and space. So if you can imagine a infinite space created within a finite space, welcome to my world, because that's what we're talking about. Okay, so let's go look upon our subject matter now. Okay, we'll start with this really basic, simplistic discussion. This is obviously a doll. And I'm going to have it represent your physical body. It certainly represents a physical human body, doesn't it? And that's what we're going to call this. a representation of your physical body. This is what you see, and this is what you know. And everything in your physical body is associated with this mannequin, this doll. You're born as an infant and you die as an old person, or somehow you're killed through some interruptive means. Associated with this doll is your soul, your spirit. We'll call it your spirit, the unphysical part of you, your thoughts, your dreams, your hopes, your desires, your ambitions. But you can't see them, can you? You can't see them. Where can you see your hopes, your dreams, your memories? You can't see them, can you? Nobody can see them, not with our eyes. So let's use the regular conventions. Quanta. Quanta. These are your hopes, your dreams, your being, yourself, everything that's non-physical associated with you. And this is also quanta as well. These are your lowest. Your lowest energy is this. And the higher energy is this. Let's put all this in a container instead of in my hand. Here we go. This is a container. This part of the container represents this physical body. And this part represents all the quanta, the non-physical part of you. This is something that I have talked about over and over again in my other videos. And it's something that's pretty important. Now, that is this package that you see right here. This is you, as you know it. But you also have something known as the guardian angel, or what we also call the Manted GP, which is a personality that is you, but it is not this. It's another part of you. Upon your death, this is what you will leave. Your consciousness will be reduced to this other container, and you'll probably be flying up and even observing your body. There's many accounts of that, where you're over here checking out your body that's dead. And by all accounts, there's something that commonly occurs. You also meet the presence of another person. People sometimes call this other person Jesus, or a guardian, or a guardian angel. Rarely Manted, but there's this other person that you will meet. It's got its own personality, but you will feel a direct love and kinship with it. This is your higher energy self. As I've described before, it's more than just these two parts. There's another part, a very high energy part of you, which I refer to as the Manted Prime. It's commonly referred to as God because it is so high energy, and it is part of you. And because it's so high energy, I put it in a big bottle like this. God, or Manted GP, Jesus, or God, or Manted Prime, Jesus, or Guardian Angel, or Manted GP, General Population Manted, and you in your various shell bodies. There's multiple shell bodies. And this triad is you.
This is you. This entire construction is you. This is not a separate person. This is not a separate person or a deity. You're carrying on the experiences as a separate person. But this all is you. And what you want to do is you don't want to go up and hang out with this guy. Or go out and hang out with this guy. What you really want is you want a merging of all three of these together. A merging with God, if you will. Let's look at that. Let's look at the merging. Let's take you and put you in this container. And take this. This is the Manted GP. And put you in this container. And this is known as God, or the Manted Prime. The higher energy part of you. And this, my friends, is your soul. This is it. This is soul. And you're all going to mix together. And once you mix together, you are not limited to stay in heaven. You are not limited to stay on the earth. You are free to go anywhere. Now, there is nothing that I have said in this video that I have not said anywhere else. The containers have changed, but the meaning stays the same.
Now that was the basic, simplistic discussion, and you're probably yawning. All right, I know this stuff because you said it 100 times. Now, let's get into more details here, okay? Let's talk a little bit about the fine stuff, the quanta, and how it works. Okay?
Now, when you join together, this is a very simplistic representation of what will happen. But that is not really how it's going to work. Prior to you being segregated into a triad, into three separate forms, you had one singular form where all the quanta had a role and all the quanta fit together. We're going to use this to represent what that looked like. Okay? This square represents the pre-imprisonment on the earth form that you had. Your quanta had roles and had spots on this form, whatever it was. And maybe there were spaces that had other utility and connections to other systems, but basically this was you prior to coming to the earth. You were your soul was in an order. There was an order to your soul. And it was broken into three parts, and you were imprisoned. And part of that breaking up was the tearing apart of your memories. Now let's talk about something a little bit more detail. What if you are like MM here, you are like me, and you are going to join the domain come hell or high water? You're not going to stay in this reincarnation bit. So whatever form I had in my past whether it was Mades Escaplion or whatever the hell I was. I don't want it anymore. Instead, I want the form associated with domain. This is the old form that I had. Then I was torn into 3 parts and left here to rot on the earth. And now I want to leave. I want to get all my quanta back, and I want to join the domain. How is that going to occur? There is going to be an event where, as much as me as possible, my Manted GP and my Manted Prime and myself are all going to plow into domain. Maybe the Manted Prime will not participate. Well, let me get rid of Manted Prime stuff then. Okay? And it's just me and my Manted GP. And now the Manted GP is a shared consciousness, or a shared entity. So it'll be a little bit different there. Let's suppose that the Manted, your guardian angel, doesn't want to do that either. Well then, and if that's the case, then this is how it's going to look like. Just you. But even that, all these other voids will be filled in. They will be filled in until this entire structure is totally populated. Or else you can't function. So you know that all these other parts are going to be filled in. And once they're filled in, it will look something like this. These other parts will be filled in. These other elements will be cloned from templates and occupied by other parts of domain being. Over time, of course, you can develop your own quanta, but we're not going to talk about that at this moment.
Now, all this being said, you're probably yawning and you're bored to death, and you're like, well, why don't you give me something new for a change, huh? Well, to start dealing with the more complex issues, what we really need to do is try to keep everything simple. If you're learning how to dance, if you're learning how to do martial arts, it's always perfection of simplicity. For instance, you can really look like an expert by only knowing 4 moves in the rumba. The key is how you use it, how you dance it. Same thing with martial arts. Same thing with woodworking. If you got the basics down pat, you can become an expert. So that's why I hammer these things over and over again. Now when I die and I discover that everything I'm saying is bullshit, well then that's pie on my face. But honestly, I believe everything I'm talking about, and I try to communicate with the commander to flush things out to make sure that this is what it is. Now, as I go into this next segment, as I start talking about how this separation is going to be pulled back together, I want to lay a couple of things down. Do not be under the impression that the moment all this quanta leaves this construct, this reality universe, that it all goes back to its natural form. It will not. The reason is because you have changed. The quanta has changed over all these reincarnation periods. After all, whatever siphons off has occurred, of all the experiences the Mantes has, it's different. So what's happened is, you took, if you can imagine yourself as a a clay pot on a potter's wheel, and you were a vase that was clay. And then when the old empire grabbed you, it grabbed this vase and tore it apart. And then threw it into water. And over time, it got softer, the edges got soft and round, and things started taking on different shapes and appearances. And now you think that they're all going to come back together, you're going to be the same. You're not. So whatever group assists you, and listen to me, I can't imagine how you're going to do it on your own. You're going to need others. Whatever group assists you in coming back to be whole, to reunifying, whatever system it is going to have to be able to put all the pieces back together in a good form. Now, there's forms you can have, right? You've got the form that you used to have before you were torn apart. You've got a ready-made form by joining domain. And there's other forms that you may choose to take. But you need to take a form. That way you're reunified with your Manted GP and you're reunified with Manted Prime, and you can leave the universe. You can go elsewhere. So you need to have a form. Before you can leave this entire universe, you need a form. And that's what we're talking about. Now, I'm only talking about what domain can do. That's what I'm talking about. But this pertains to whatever organization or group that you're associated with. Okay? So let's talk about this, all right?
The goal is to gather all the quanta together and put it into a defined configuration. As I have already discussed, a configuration for domain differs from that of which your previous pre-prison configuration was, unless of course you were domain, and you may even want a different configuration. Do not be under the assumption that it will occur naturally, that once you're out of this prison environment, you will automatically go back to and reconstitute what you used to be. That's not going to be the case. So what domain has is a process of reintegration. And I am going to try to simplify what's going to happen right now. This is all your quanta. Let's assume that your Manted Prime, your Manted GP, and yourself are all willing to be reintegrated. And you're working with domain. Let's make that assumption. Because if you're not working with domain, and you're working with another group, there will be some other system put in place to help you go into the form that you want. Now, I'm going to put out this other contraption here, this other box. And for simplification purposes, let's call this box the form that you want. I used other examples where I showed the heart, if it's domain and everything. But let's suppose that this is it. What's going to happen then is there's going to be a process where some of your quanta is going to be placed here, while other quanta is going to be placed over here, and other quanta may be placed here, and yet another quanta might be placed over here. Okay? Right? There's a process. And this is the end result. So it's going to be a staged process where quanta is then going to be put in pigeonholed in clusters within what I will call a temporary form. Think of it as a cast if you broke your arm and you want it to form back properly. There will be a cast, and elements will then go into various segments within this cast. Now, if you don't have a Manted Prime or a Manted GP, you may have very few pockets that you'll be able to fill in, but they will eventually be filled in. Now, this is a great simplification to the entire process. But in all cases, you must recognize that even if you're alone, it's just your consciousness, your guardian angel or Manted GP decides not to come with you, you're going to be on your own. You're still going to have to go through this separation, segmentation process. Hopefully it'll be painless. It should be painless, but okay. And your Manted GP might be over here on the outside. And your Manted Prime might be in another universe over here on the outside, looking at what's going on. I don't think that's what's going to happen, but it might. But in any event, you will have to expect that once you decide to get off the standard boilerplate of heaven, reincarnation, and back and forth, this is what you've got to look forward to. It needn't be anything to be concerned about, and it needn't be frightening. But that is the process. Okay? Now, I hope that I was, I hope that I was able to explain things to you in a easy enough way to understand what's going on and why it's going on and how it will happen. I'm using simple explanations and simple tools to explain an extremely complicated process. I don't know how it's going to be done, the how. I know what is going to be done, so I explain to you the what and the why, but I don't know the how. And the how apparently is complex as far as I can figure out. And in my small mind as a human, I think it must involve large gravitational masses, spinning and rotating structures, all kinds of dark energy and this and that and other things I have no comprehension of. Because if it is a electromagneto-gravitational effect that separates us, there has to be something of similar power to reunify us. And consciousness, no matter how strong-willed you are, is not going to be able to do it as far as I understand. So, that's it in a nutshell. How is this going to help you? Well, you have to understand the trade-offs and the consequences that you take on once you break from this reincarnation cycle. You have to understand the consequences and what happens if you want to decide to leave the heaven pocket universe. So what options do you have? You have 3 options. Number 1, continue as is. Reincarnate and just keep on trying, hopefully that something will change for the better. Number 2, you follow the process and you go to heaven and you stay there. You just never go back. The third option, of course, is none of the above. You don't go to heaven, but you don't reincarnate. So you stay in disembodied spirit, kind of hovering around the physical reality, the world line template or series of templates. And of course, there's the fourth, which is the purpose of this entire discussion. You employ the services of another organization, which
in our region of space is domain, and have them put Humpty Dumpty back together again. Put you back together again. Okay? From their point of view, they don't care what your template, your baseline soul configuration is. For all I know, they may have a binder with different soul configurations, and you pick the one that you like, for all I know. A long time ago, I joined Domain. I was unaware of it through most of my life, but apparently I did. I think it's okay. I'm proud to call myself Domain, even though I call it with a little d, because I feel more like an appliance or a Frankenstein-like critter. I'm not worthy, I think, in many ways. But I am what I am, and I'm doing the best I can, and I'm making a lot of mistakes, but I'm just trying, okay? And I just want to help you guys, okay? And that's what's going on. Whatever the future holds for you, keep this in mind as you leave your body and make decisions on what you're going to do next. Remember, there's no rush to do anything. If you're in this timeless state, you're in this timeless state. And you decide what you want to do. Remember, you have to be able to remember your earliest moment becoming consciousness. If you don't remember that, then memories are withheld from you. How can you make decisions on only partial memories? You should be able to remember how you were torn asunder and ended up on this earth. You should be able to remember that and recall that. If you're not able to, that means that you don't have all your memories. So how can you make decisions without all those memories? You have to rely on other people, other support sections. Be careful. And with that, people, I hope you enjoyed this particular video, and I hope that whatever happens in this day, that your day gets better and better in every way. Remember to be good to dogs and cats, your co-workers. A cup of coffee doesn't cost much. Buy one for a friend. Buy one for somebody you don't know very well. Get him a cup of coffee and say, hey, I got you a cup of coffee. You watched the game yesterday? Be social, because we're social creatures. And with that, people, take care. Because you know what? Well, I believe in you. That's what.